You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and we are beginning our picks for week number 2 of the USFL. Today, going over Saturday's games, the first couple of matchups we have for week number 2, which we will be discussing the Houston Gamblers taking on the New Orleans Breakers, and then also going over the Memphis Showboats and the Birmingham Stallions. Now, before we dive in, I do have a big question of the day for you all. As news broke last night, the defending champion Birmingham Stallions have moved J'Mar Smith to the injured reserve, and it sounds like that might be it for him for the entirety of the season, which means it is Alex McGough time. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts, especially since we're previewing the Birmingham Stallions in today's video. How do you think this affects the Stallions going forward? Are they going to be able to rebound from this? Can Alex McGough take the reins and lead this team back to the promised land? Is it going to ultimately flop? Do you think that maybe the starting quarterback for the Stallions, maybe midpoint into the season, isn't even on the team right now? There is a lot to look at, and while I do want to say that we could see a decent amount of changes with this offense, Alex McGough's pretty athletic, and I really don't think you have to change too much. Maybe a few things here or there, maybe Alex McGough being a little less of a running quarterback than, say, J'Mar Smith is, but overall, I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Fire away in that comment section down below. I would love to hear what you think of that big news that came out last night. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Again, we're talking Saturday, April 22nd, both games for week number 2, and we kick things off with the 12:30 p.m. game being hosted at Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama, as the Houston Gamblers go up against the New Orleans Breakers. You can catch this game on the USA Network. As far as just kind of my quick thoughts going into this game go, you're looking at a Breakers team that, while they were pretty successful moving the ball for the most part last week, they struggled to finish drives off, amounting to 5 total field goals made to help them pull out that tight victory over the Maulers. That is something that they are going to need to correct coming into this week's game. And then you're looking at a Gamblers team that is coming off of a 4-turnover loss against the Michigan Panthers last week. Did not really look good as far as protecting the football is concerned. Protecting Kenji Bahar was another issue as well. But ultimately, a team that needs to focus on just protecting the football overall if they want to have any shot at coming away with a victory in this game. Now, as for the Breakers here, when I'm looking at their keys to success, the things that I'm looking at that I believe will help make them victors in this matchup here, first one's going to be, I think, going back to that passing game that you saw last week. It took them a little bit to get going. Obviously, McLeod Bethel-Thompson was under heavy pressure last week. He was sacked 4 times in that game. I think that the offensive line is going to need to be a lot better up front, and not only just the passing game, but also in the running game as well, averaging just a measly 2.7 yards per carry in the running game last week. It's going to be up to those guys up front to not only protect McLeod Bethel-Thompson, but be a little bit more aggressive in that run game, be a little bit more physical, and try to open up some running lanes for those running backs in New Orleans, because you don't want to become too one-dimensional. I know right now things are not necessarily looking too good for the Gamblers, but it's still early in the season, and one bad game doesn't necessarily mean that they are the absolute worst in the league. Obviously, I have them ranked there at number 8, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's where they are. That's just kind of what we know of them right now. For all we know, the Gamblers could bounce back and have a fantastic game defending the pass, but maybe just letting people walk all over them in the run. We don't really know. We have yet to actually see what these teams are. We still got to go through a few weeks, but I think if you want to be the Breakers and you want to be successful in this game, not only do you want to go back to that passing attack, which was really effective last week, and the Gamblers weren't necessarily the great at stopping the pass themselves, you got to commit to that running game and be aggressive up front. Protect the quarterback, open up some running lanes, and that passing game should open up along with it. As for the defense, I mean, you pretty much just want to do what you did last week. Create a lot of pressure, be stout up front, and you saw what happened to Kenji Bahar when he was under duress last week. 3 total turnovers. So if you do pretty much what you did last week, the Breakers, they just got to get to the quarterback. I want to see them get some takedowns. That's probably my biggest takeaway. The Breakers did not do necessarily the most when it came to going after the quarterback last week. I'd like to see a little bit more from them on that front. But overall, what you did last week on defense, if you do it again this week, you should be feeling pretty good. As for the gamblers, if they want to come away winners in this game here, I mean, the biggest thing I'm looking at, and I already kind of touched on it, is just protecting the football. Kenji Bahar accounted for 3 turnovers with a fumble and 2 interceptions. And then on top of that, you had another fumble as well. I think go back to the running game and try to take the load off Kenji Bahar a little bit. Let's look at the running backs a little bit more and focus on handing off that football. I don't want to see them force Kenji Bahar to be in a situation where he is as uncomfortable, as he was last week. I think that's probably going to be something that is key to your success here. The Breakers allowed 4.4 yards per carry last weekend, so with that in mind, maybe they're a little bit softer when it comes to defending the run. Try to create some opportunity for Kenji Bahar and take that load off of his shoulders. As for the defense, I mean, you have to figure it out when it comes to defending the pass. You let up, 237 yards through the air and 3 passing touchdowns against the Panthers. This is obviously not the defense that it was last year. You lost so many great players like Donald Payne, Will Likely, Defensive Player of the Year, Chris Odom. You're clearly going to need some other guys to step up for you. And I mean, I could sit here and ramble on about multiple different things that this defense needs to do to kind of fix themselves after what we saw from last week. But ultimately, guys just need to step up. We need to find some of those playmakers we saw this Gamblers defense have last year. It's really unfortunate just how many playmakers are gone from this unit. So people need to step up if this Gamblers team wants to avoid another season like last year's. But if they want to come away victorious, let's focus on this week. Let's tighten some things up. Try to get some pressure. It's clear that the offensive line in New Orleans is not necessarily the best. We already talked about this a little bit here. So if you can maybe create some pressure and try to slow down that passing game and hold them to maybe a full 4 quarters of unsuccessful passing attempts as opposed to just a half game like the Maulers did the Breakers last week, maybe you can come away and steal a victory. But as for who I think comes out winners in this game, and I don't want to say that I didn't really put like a ton of thought into this. However, it's going to be the New Orleans Breakers. I don't really think that I can sit here and say that I could buy into the Gamblers winning this game after the showing we saw last week. And like I said, I understand it's only 1 week, and that doesn't necessarily tell the entire story of what this Gamblers team is going to be. But right now, just the way the Breakers looked, I think they're a little bit more of a complete team overall. They clearly had once they got into that second half, a little more gas in the tank in the passing game. Things started to open up a little bit more. They got to figure out the running game. Again, 2.7 yards a carry, not the most attractive stat line. However, if you sort that out, defense looked really good. You have an experienced quarterback. I like their chances. Offensive line needs to get a little bit better. Again, they need to be more physical up front. I think that's where it all starts for the Breakers. Be more physical. Don't let those guys bull rush you when it comes to bull rush, whether it's bull rushes, speed rushes, whatever it may be. Do not let those defensive linemen get the better of you in the pass, and be bullies up front when it comes to running the football. Open up those running lanes. But I think that the Breakers can come away with a victory in this one, and I have them winning 25-16. I'm a little bit concerned about what this offense is going to look like for the Gamblers, whether Kenji Bahar gets to start again, or maybe if we see somebody like Montel Kozar or Trey Wilson. We'll just have to see kind of what they decide to do at quarterback. But right now, just based off of what I saw last week, I'm a little bit concerned about what they're going to be able to get done if, let's say, Kenji Bahar gets to start again and he's another turnover mess, or maybe just somebody else gets to start that. Kenji Bahar won the job, so your thought process is, all right, if he beat out the other guys, can it get any better? Possibly, but I mean, your odds of that happening are not nearly as high as getting success with Kenji Bahar, I guess, or maybe the Gamblers made the wrong choice. Who knows? But right now, I'm a little concerned about what we saw with the Gamblers last week, and until I see otherwise, I'm not going to go ahead and just pick them to get a victory over a team that was able to basically shut down the offense of their opponent last week and go for 300 some odd yards passing through the air. Now, looking at game number 2 at 7 p.m., we got ourselves a primetime game here on a Saturday. We're looking at the Memphis Showboats and the Birmingham Stallions. This game is going to be on Fox if you're looking to watch this one here. Also being brought to you from Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. As far as just my quick takes for this game here, obviously the big news, as I talked to you guys about that earlier in the video, Stallions trying to figure out what they're going to do now in a post-Jamar Smith era. Alex Magoo stepping in. He looked really good last week. I've got to say, I've never been like the biggest believer of Alex Magoo by any means. I will come right out and say that and be completely upfront about it. However, he had a pretty strong performance last week. He had himself a touchdown on the ground, a touchdown through the air, and he totaled up, 111 or 119 yards altogether or so, give or take. Just doing quick math here. I like the chances of the Stallions despite losing J'Mar Smith here is basically what I'm summing this up to. And then when you're looking at the Memphis Showboats here, they come into this game, and we saw it from them last week in the second half. But with how good the Stallions are, and I consider the Stars and Stallions to be those two premier teams. If you haven't watched my power rankings, make sure you go check that out after this video as well. You'll see where I have them ranked here. But I look at the Stars and the Stallions as the two top teams in the league. And if they start out slow the way they did against the Stars last week, you're possibly looking at the same exact end result, which is getting another L in the wrong column, or getting another tick in the wrong column, and that being the loss side of things. I do think that there's a possibility that the Showboats can come away with a win in this game, but they have to look like that team in the second half, which means establishing the running game early. I want to see them get the ball in Alex Collins' hands more. I know that the first half things were not really going too well, but Brady White started with the interception, and then you were trying to get things rolling. And I want to say that part of their issues early last week was Todd Haley's kind of insistence to throw the football, and you saw that last year as well when they had Jordan Te'amu and it was the Tampa Bay Bandits. I think if you focus a little bit more on a balanced attack, and a guy like Alex Collins, who was supposed to be a stud in the NFL, and obviously things didn't go exactly the way people were hoping for in the Alex Collins camp, I will say that I think he has a lot of potential to be a legitimate star in the USFL, and we saw that. He had 3 plays in the second half go for 10-plus yards, one of them being a 19-yard gain. I think if you can get him a little bit more involved, scheme around him as running back one a little bit more, and try to just ease up on the pressure on Brady White, I think things could look really good for the Showboats, but that's kind of how they need to handle their offense. Don't put all the weight on Brady White's shoulders. Stay away from the poor decisions you made last year and trying to be such a pass-happy offense. Get a little bit more balanced, establish the run, open up your passing game, maybe take some shots at the play action. Todd Haley's offense is built off of that. It's supposed to be establish the run so you can open up the play action and take deep shots down the field. So I want to see them focus on that ground game a little bit more here. The defense, realistically, this is another situation of if you play like you did last week, you're going to find yourself in a really good spot. The defense was strong. 5 sacks. They had 6 tackles for loss as well. Protect over the top. Don't let the Stallions burn you for a massive play. It's very clear that they're still able to do that. They showed it with the 61-yard bomb that they had last week for a score early in the game. Just protect the back end of your defense and be aggressive up front like you were just last week. Again, 5 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. That is an awesome week for your defensive front 7. Bring that same aggression this week and see if you can make a few plays against this Birmingham Stallions offense that's not necessarily reeling, but doing a little bit of soul searching right now since they lost QB1 last week during their game. As for the Stallions, if they're going to be successful, first things first, believe in Alex Magoo. He is the guy going forward. And again, he showed it looks like he can run this offense, and I really don't think you have to make a massive amount of changes to what you're doing. Alex Magoo is clearly athletic enough to run a very similar system to what you were already doing with J'Mar Smith under center. He, again, had the 68 yards through the air passing with the touchdown. He had the 51 yards off of only 6 runs for another touchdown as well. You keep the defense guessing with Alex Magoo and his ability to scramble and focus on your ground attack because you have some good running backs, and I want to see Bo Scarborough get a few more opportunities than he did last week. I feel like he did not necessarily get too much going, and they just kind of gave up on him. He is a premier back for you in this league, and he proved that last year. Don't just shy away from him because something's working. And I like the willingness to, try to find other ways to be successful if one thing doesn't work and the other, but don't completely abandon it. Bo Scarborough is a stud, and he had some massive games for you last year. Don't forget that. I also want to see wide receiver Austin Watkins get a little bit more involved. That 61-yard touchdown he had last week was really awesome and really exciting, but I want to see him get 2 or 3 looks deep. And again, you have to open things up, use that running offense that you have here. Clearly, you can do some trick plays with Alex Magoo as a scrambling type of quarterback. He's clearly got the wheels to run. Let's open some things up. Let's take another shot or 2 downfield, and let's target Austin Watkins. See if you can get another one of those big plays that you got last week. As for the defense for the Stallions, red zone defense last week was phenomenal. You allowed 1 touchdown and 4 trips into that red zone there. If that shows up again, coupled with their ability to slow down the pass, I really like what the Stallions is doing on defense, and I don't really see them having too much trouble with this offense that they have over there in Memphis. I could be totally wrong and off base on that, but right now, based off of what I've seen from them in week 1, I really like the direction that the Stallions defense is heading. I will say, though, they need to make sure they contain the run. You must contain the run. The Showboats, once they got going on the ground, got really, really good. And again, Alex Collins, like I was saying, can be a guy that if he's given the opportunity, I think could be a real legitimate back in this league. They allowed 6.6 yards per carry on 30 attempts for nearly 200 yards against the Generals last week. You have got to find an answer for that. You do not want to let the Showboats, if they opt to maybe go for more of a rushing attack than a passing attack in this game, because you're clearly trying to attack some of the weaknesses that you saw from last week. If they start running wild on you, you might have yourselves a problem. But as for who I think comes out victorious in this game, I think it's going to come down to defense in this game. I really do. I think that it's going to be which defense can hold the other team's offense, because both offenses, I think, have real potential upside and ability to score. And that goes for the Showboats just as much as the Stallions. Again, once the Showboats got a little bit more balance in their attack, things started to look a lot better for them. And I think if they go to that this week, Stallions might have their hands full, especially if they really focus on the run. I think I like the Stallions, though, and I think I'm going to go with the Stallions for the victory in this game. I'm going to take them 22-20, though. I think this is going to be a good contest. I expect maybe a turnover or two from both of the offenses here because of some opportunistic defensive play. On top of that, I think both of these defenses have a strong ability to get after the quarterback and wreak some havoc, so good opportunity to force mistakes there, but both teams also have the opportunity to put up a decent amount of points, but I think it's defense which is going to decide, I think it is defense that is going to decide this game ultimately. It's going to be maybe a late interception, late forced fumble, something like that to seal out the game. I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring affair, but we should see something like 40 plus points in this game when it is all said and done. But that is how I am looking at week number 2 for Saturday of the USFL. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. I'll be doing my preview for the Sunday games tomorrow, so make sure you stick around for that as well. But again, if you didn't watch my power rankings video, make sure you go check that out if you got some time right now. But that is it for me. I appreciate you if you made it all the way to the end of this video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.